She
Can you
closed
hear
her
me?
eyes,
Yes,
thinking
I'm
she'd
here.
die.
We
But
have
what
to
this
move
human
now.
did
Help me up.
shattered the galaxy.
Hey, can you
The
hear me?
Valley of Quran
Yes.
9 had
It hurts.
always been a
I'm getting you
place
up.
of quiet
Hold on.
beauty.
Thank you.
But now it
Can
was
you
a
stand? We need to move.
graveyard of
Yes, I
shattered
think so.
starships
Help me
and
up.
burning
This way.
wreckage.
Stay close.
I will.
The air was thick with ash.
Can you stand? We need
a
to move.
smoky
Yes, I
haze
think
that
so.
hung
Help me
low
up.
over the
This
ruined
way.
city.
Stay close.
I will.
The once great alien
Can you hear me?
structures,
Stay with me.
proud and
I'm here.
majestic,
I'm okay.
We have to
now
move.
lay in
Now.
pieces.
Okay.
The towering
won't
spires
leave
had
you.
crumbled into
Can I trust
jagged
you?
shards of
Always.
metal and
Now
stone,
let's go.
while the ground beneath them was
Can you hear me?
scorched.
We have to
a
move.
battlefield
Yes,
of dead
but I'm weak.
machines and
I've got you.
smoldering
Lean on me.
remnants.
Thank you.
The winds
Can you hear
howled
me?
through
We
the
have to
ruins,
move.
stirring
Yes,
the dust
but
in
I'm weak.
restless
I've got you.
spirals.
Lean on me.
The
Thank
war had come without
Stay with me.
warning.
Are you
and
hurt?
Like so
I will
many
endure.
before
The
it,
energy surge
it had
hit
ended
hard.
in a brutal
Hang on. I'm
silence.
getting you out. The ship's going down.
Clashing
We have to go
forces,
now.
Human
But the
and
mission
alien,
is
had
over. We
torn
save
through
ourselves.
The land,
All right, lead the
leaving
way.
only destruction
Status
in their
report.
wake.
Shields at full.
But
Confirmed.
now,
Energy
there was
levels
nothing
optimal.
left
Reroute
but
POW.
the sound
Now.
of
Rerouting.
distant
System
fires
synchronized.
crackling.
Hey,
The
can you hear
eerie,
me?
hollow sound
Yes.
of a
It
battlefield
hurts.
I'm getting
that
you
had
up.
exhausted
Hold on.
itself.
Thank you.
Amid the wreckage, Eli Carter stood alone, his figure looming against the horizon. His armor, battered and scorched from the long fight, blended with the dust around him. The helmet that had once protected him was now discarded on the ground, its surface marred by scratches and dents. Eli's face was gaunt, the signs of exhaustion evident in the dark circles under his eyes. His hand shook slightly as he gripped the weapon at his side, but his gaze was steady, locked on the figure before him. The alien woman lay in the dirt, her body propped against the twisted remains of a dropship. Her blue skin, once vibrant with bioluminescent patterns, now flickered weakly, her life force dimming with every shallow breath. Dark silver blood pooled around her, mixing with the ashes of the battlefield. She was broken, beyond saving in the eyes of many, yet still clinging to life. Eli approached her slowly, each step measured, careful. The weight of the moment settled over him like a storm. He had seen death before, had caused it too, but this was different. This alien, this enemy, had surrendered in the most profound way possible. She didn't beg, she didn't scream, she simply lay there, waiting for the end to come. When Eli was close enough, he paused. His eyes studied her, but she didn't look at him, she didn't even flinch. Instead, her eyes remained closed, as if resigned to the fate she had long accepted. The humanity in Eli stirred, a feeling he had never thought would surface on a battlefield. He had been trained to fight, to kill, but here, in this moment, he was faced with something entirely new. "I'm not going to kill you," Eli said, his voice rough and low, but firm. He wasn't sure if she heard him, or if she even believed him. The translator in her collar buzzed weakly, struggling to understand the human words, but she didn't move. She didn't respond. The silence between them stretched, the weight of it pressing down on both of them. Eli's fingers twitched, itching to raise his weapon, to end it all quickly and be done with it. But something held him back. He wasn't sure what, but he couldn't do it. Not this time. Not now. Eli took a step closer, his boots crunching on the charred earth. He crouched down beside her, his movements slow, deliberate. He didn't want to startle her, didn't want to give her a reason to fight, to think that this was some trick. Carefully, he reached into his pack and pulled out a small injector, human tech, simple but effective. The alien woman's golden eyes flickered open just slightly, catching the edge of his motion. They were filled with confusion, disbelief. She wasn't sure if what she saw was real. She wasn't sure if this was some final trick, some cruel twist of fate. But Eli didn't hesitate. He pressed the injector to her side, the soft hiss of the needle punctuating the silence. The nanofibers in the injector began to work immediately, stitching the wound together, repairing the damage. The alien's skin, once dim, now pulsed with a steady glow, the bioluminescence returning, though weakly. Her breathing slowed, becoming more controlled, as though she were no longer teetering on the edge of death. Eli stood back, watching her, his breath heavy in his chest. His hand dropped to his side, the weapon he had carried for so long, now forgotten. He wasn't sure what to expect now. He wasn't sure what any of this meant. But the truth was undeniable. He had saved her life. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The alien woman blinked up at him, her eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't place. Fear? Gratitude? Confusion? It didn't matter. What mattered was that she was still alive, and for reasons Eli didn't fully understand, that was enough. She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "You speak," she said, the words coming out like a question. Her golden eyes searched his face, trying to understand the impossible. How could a human, a soldier, someone who had just torn through her world, be standing here offering her life instead of taking it? "Yeah, we do that sometimes," Eli replied, his voice softer than it had been moments before. He offered her a small, tired smile. It wasn't much, but it was real. The alien woman's gaze shifted, her eyes falling to the insignia etched into his armor. It was the mark of humanity, a symbol of warning, a symbol of fear. Her throat tightened as she realized something. This human wasn't like the others. He wasn't a monster, not like the stories had said. "Why?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why didn't you kill me?" Eli didn't know how to answer. The truth was simple, but it felt too complicated to put into words. There was no grand reason, no deep philosophy behind his choice. He just couldn't do it. Not to her, not here, not now. "Because," he said slowly, "today's been bad enough." The alien woman's eyes fluttered as she processed his words. She was still too weak to fully understand what was happening. She had been trained to see humans as nothing but monsters, as creatures of violence and war. But Eli had shown her something different, something she never expected. Eli offered her a hand, his gloved fingers reaching out. "My name's Eli," he said simply. For the first time, the alien woman hesitated. Her eyes flickered between his hand and his face, unsure. But then something shifted inside her. Slowly, she reached out and took his hand. "Soon," she whispered. Eli gave a small nod, his grip firm but not forceful. "Well, soon," Eli said, his voice steady. "Looks like we're both still alive, and that alone should scare the galaxy."
Suen stared at him, her mind racing. This human, this soldier, had just saved her. He had done the one thing no one expected. He had spared her life. And in doing so, he had changed everything. The ruins of Quran 9 stretched out before them, silent and broken, a reminder of what war had done. But now, something new was taking shape, something the galaxy was not ready for. A human who chose mercy,
Stay with me.
who
Are you
chose
hurt?
life
I will
over
endure
death,
the energy
and
surge
who was
of your
not
heart.
afraid
Hang
to
on,
show
I'm
it.
getting you out.
The battle
Can you
was
hear
over,
me? We have to
but the
move.
real war
Yes,
was
but
just
I'm
beginning.
weak.
I've got you. Lean on
The
me.
unexpected choice.
Can you hear me?
The
We have
shelter
to
was
move.
quiet,
Yes,
a strange
but I'm weak.
contrast
I've
to the
got you.
chaos
Lean on
that had
me.
ravaged Quran 9.
I won't leave you.
Eli stood
Can I
by the
trust
small
you?
window,
Always.
watching the
Now let's
swirling
go.
dust outside, the faint glow
Can you
of
stand? We need
distant
to move.
fires
Yes,
painting
I
the
think so.
sky in
Help
an
me up.
eerie red.
This way. Stay close.
His
I will.
eyes, though tired,
Can you
seemed to
stand? We need to
sharpen
move.
as he watched
Yes,
the
I think so.
world beyond.
Help me up.
This way.
Always
Stay
alert,
close.
I will.
always prepared.
Can you hear me?
Inside,
Stay with me.
the hum
I'm
of
here. I'm
machinery
okay.
filled
We have to
the
move.
space.
Now.
A reminder that survival was the
Can you
only
hear me?
language
Yes, I'm
humanity
here.
spoke now.
We have to move
Suen,
now.
still
Help me up.
recovering from the injuries
The ship's
Eli
going down.
had
We
healed,
have to go now.
lay on a cot
the
in
mission
the corner.
Is over.
The
We
once
save ourselves.
strong
All right,
alien
lead the way.
woman, now fragile
Status
and
report.
weak,
Shields at
was
full?
wrapped
Confirmed.
in a thin
Energy levels
blanket.
optimal.
Her
Reroute
pale
POW.
blue
Now.
skin
Rerouting.
now more
System
vibrant,
synchronized.
the
Hey, can you hear
bioluminescent
me?
lines faintly
Yes.
pulsing
Hurts.
beneath the
I'm
surface.
getting you up. Hold
She
on.
was
Thank
far
you.
from full recovery, but Eli's med injector had done its work. Her breathing was steady now, her wound sealed, and she was no longer on the edge of death. Suen had been silent since Eli had saved her. Her golden eyes had followed him, watching his every move with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. Every instinct she had told her to fear him, to distrust him. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous, and merciless. Yet this human, this
Hey,
Eli,
can you hear
was
me?
doing something no
Yes.
one had ever expected.
I'm getting you up.
He had
Hold on.
spared her
Thank you.
life, a life that had once seemed so insignificant in the grand sweep of the war. Eli, sensing her eyes on him, turned from the window. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he studied her, noting how she sat, her posture still tense, yet her expression not entirely hostile. There was something different about this encounter, about Suen. It wasn't just the usual animosity between enemies. No, there was something deeper here, a question that neither of them could answer just yet. Suen shifted uncomfortably, the stillness too much for her. "Why?" she asked quietly, breaking the silence that had stretched between them. Her voice was weak, hoarse from the fight, but there was a sharpness in it that cut through the air. Eli raised an eyebrow, but didn't answer immediately. He took a slow step towards her, his boots echoing softly in the small room. "Why what?" he asked, his voice calm, but there was a glint of something in his eyes, something that told her he knew exactly what she was asking. "Why did you save me?" Suen's golden eyes narrowed as she sat up slightly, studying him with an intensity that made Eli pause. "You humans don't spare anyone. You fight, you kill, you destroy. So why not me?" Eli's gaze softened, though his face remained impassive. He knew she didn't understand. How could she? After everything her people had done to humanity, after everything humanity had done to defend itself, this act, this simple act of mercy, was alien to her. "Maybe I just don't want to add another death to the pile," he said, his voice low, almost to himself. "This war, it's been a long one, too long. I'm not interested in continuing it like this." Suen's eyes flickered with disbelief. Her people had always seen humans as unpredictable, as wild animals that only knew how to escalate a fight, not end it. To them, humans were a threat because they didn't stop when things got bad. They pushed forward until everything was ruined. To see a human act differently, compassionately even, was a concept she struggled to understand. "You don't want to fight anymore?" she asked, her voice a mix of confusion and skepticism. Eli didn't respond right away. He stared at the floor for a moment, his fingers tapping against his side. "No," he finally said, "I'm not interested in fighting for the sake of fighting. I'm not a soldier anymore, Suen, not the kind you think of. I fight because I have to, because I don't want to lose anyone else. But I don't want to be the one who just keeps hurting people." Suen sat up straighter, her mind racing as she tried to piece together the human before her. "But you're a soldier," she said, almost accusingly. "You've fought wars. You've killed countless. "Yeah," Eli interrupted, his voice tight. "Yeah, I have, and it wasn't easy, but that doesn't mean I want to keep doing it. You think we're all the same, that we all fight until there's nothing left, but you're wrong." Suen's eyes narrowed as she took in his words. "Then what is it that you want?" she asked, her voice quieter now. She didn't understand him. She didn't understand why he had spared her, why he was doing this when every part of her being told her to be wary of him, to stay away. Eli sighed deeply and glanced at the window again. "What I want," he said slowly, "is a chance to stop this madness, to find something more than just survival, something better. And maybe, just maybe, it starts with you." Suen blinked, unsure if she had heard him right. "What do you mean?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, her heart racing as she tried to make sense of his words. Eli turned to face her fully, his expression hardening with determination. "I don't know what it is you think about humans, Suen, but we're not all the same. We're not all monsters. Some of us, we still have something left worth saving." The weight of his words sank into the space between them. Swen stared at him, her mind still struggling to understand. She had been trained to see humans as threats, as enemies, but here,
In this small, makeshift shelter, she saw something different. A human who wasn't acting out of rage or hate. A human who had made a choice, one that could change everything. "Why me?" she asked again, her voice more subdued now, as though the answer she sought was finally beginning to form in her mind. Eli's lips curled into a small, almost wistful smile. "Because, Swen," he said, "you're still here, and that means you might just be worth something more than the destruction we've been taught to bring." The air between them seemed to shift, the tension easing just a little. Swen didn't know what to make of him. She didn't know whether to trust him or run, but there was something about Eli, something that made her feel something more than just fear. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if that was a good thing. Outside, the wind continued to howl, and the fires still burned in the distance, but inside the shelter, a new kind of silence had fallen, one that held the weight of a decision yet to be made. "Well then," Eli said, breaking the silence, "I guess we'll see where this goes." The unexpected partnership. The shelter was small but efficient, human-made, of course, with a hodgepodge of alien and human materials pieced together like a jigsaw puzzle. The walls hummed faintly with the energy of makeshift generators, and a faint, flickering blue light illuminated the room. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep them alive. It was enough to keep them going. Swen had seen much grander structures in her lifetime, gleaming spires of Aurelian engineering, cities that shimmered with alien elegance. But now, in this dim, makeshift space, she couldn't help but feel the oddest sense of safety. The flickering lights weren't perfect, the walls were patched together with scavenged parts, and yet there was something raw, something genuine that no Aurelian city had ever offered. Eli was at the corner of the room, hunched over a workbench, fiddling with some kind of device. The tools scattered across the surface looked primitive to Swen's eyes. Rusted pliers, a cracked multi-tool, and a few pieces of alien scrap that he was connecting with a surprising amount of ease. He was humming softly, a sound that seemed strange in the stillness of the shelter, but for some reason it put Swen at ease. She watched him from her cot, still feeling weak, but not in the fragile state she had been in when Eli first saved her. The pain from her wound had dulled, and the nanofibers had done their work. Her skin now bore only faint signs of the injury. Still, she was far from ready to move, but her mind was awake, filled with questions. The human before her didn't fit any of the expectations she had carried for so long. "You don't look much like a soldier," she said, her voice quiet but sharp enough to be heard across the room. Her words hung in the air, and Eli paused for a moment, his hand hovering over the device. He glanced up, his eyes twinkling with a mixture of amusement and something else, perhaps a sense of recognition. "Is that so?" he asked, his voice dry. "Guess I'm full of surprises." Swen leaned back, propping herself up with one hand. "You don't carry yourself like one. Most humans, when they fight, they do it with rage, they do it with hate. But you," she faltered, trying to find the words, "you're different." Eli's gaze softened as he set the tool down on the workbench. He wiped his brow, a small gesture of exhaustion, but not defeat. "I'm just trying to make sure I don't become the thing I hate," he said quietly. "Fighting for the sake of fighting, well, that just gets you stuck in a loop. I'm trying to get out of it." Swen stared at him, still unsure if she fully understood what he meant. His words didn't fit any of the patterns she had studied in her training. Humans were supposed to be reckless, wild creatures who thrived on destruction and chaos. But Eli, he spoke as though there was a choice, as though survival wasn't just about winning, but about how you survived. "You're saying you don't want to fight?" she asked, her voice skeptical. "Not even to survive?" Eli shrugged. "Surviving's easy. Humans have been doing that for a long time. But it's more than that. It's about what we do when survival isn't the only option anymore." His words hung in the air, the silence between them heavier now, as if he had just let something slip, a truth that neither of them had fully acknowledged. Swen wasn't sure if she believed him. Could it be true? Could a human really think beyond simple survival? The humans she had encountered had only cared for one thing: victory, crushing their enemies, destroying anything that stood in their way. She swallowed, her mind struggling to comprehend what he was saying. The question that had been burning inside her for so long resurfaced. Why had he spared her? She opened her mouth to speak, but before the words could escape, the faint hum of a nearby terminal flickered to life. Eli turned quickly, his expression immediately shifting to one of alertness. He moved toward the device in the corner, his pace quick and deliberate, like a predator sensing a shift in the air. Swen watched him closely. There was no fear in his movements, no sense of panic, just focus. Whatever this was, Eli had seen it before. "Stay here," he said, not looking back, his voice sharp. She nodded, even though she wasn't entirely sure what he was planning. Her hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. She had always been trained to sense danger, to anticipate an attack before it came. But with Eli, things were different. He wasn't reacting like a soldier would. He wasn't preparing for a fight. Instead, he was adapting. Eli worked quickly, his hands moving over the controls with a practiced ease. The screen flickered as he accessed data, muttering to himself as he processed information. Swen strained to catch a glimpse of the screen, but the device was designed to be human. Everything on it was coded in a language she didn't understand. "Who is it?" she asked, her voice steady despite the unease building inside her. Eli glanced at her, his eyes narrowing slightly as he worked. "Someone's been watching us, someone who doesn't like the fact that you're still alive." Swen felt her pulse quicken, and the words didn't need explanation. She knew what they meant. The fleet, the Aurelian forces, they hadn't given up on finding her, on erasing every trace of their failure. If they discovered her location here, they would destroy everything. They would make sure no one ever saw a human and an Aurelian again. "I thought you said you wanted peace," Swen said, her voice laced with disbelief. "But this will only lead to more death." Eli's fingers flew across the screen, pulling up schematics of the surrounding area. "Peace doesn't come without resistance, Swen. You should know that better than anyone." Swen looked away, a mixture of emotions swirling in her chest. She had always believed that peace could only come through dominance, through control. But Eli, he wasn't like her people. He wasn't interested in domination. He didn't need to fight for power. He seemed to understand something she didn't, a kind of quiet strength that existed not in imposing fear, but in pushing forward even when the path seemed unclear. "Stay close," Eli said, his tone now more serious than ever. "If they're coming for us, we're going to need to be ready." Swen's eyes flickered to the console as Eli adjusted something, her heart pounding in her chest. Ready for what? The truth was, she didn't know what Eli's next move would be. He wasn't like the soldiers she had fought beside, nor the commanders who had dictated their every move. He wasn't driven by orders, by fear, or by anger. He was driven by something else entirely, a need to survive, but also to choose how to survive. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if that was a good thing. Eli stepped away from the terminal and turned to Swen, his expression unreadable. "The galaxy doesn't know what it's dealing with," he said quietly, his voice a low growl of determination. The tension in the air thickened, and Swen realized with startling clarity that she wasn't just fighting to stay alive anymore. She was fighting for something more. And for the first time, it wasn't just survival that mattered. It was choice. The unseen pulse, the